All right, guys, happy Friday. This is going to be the craziest Friday plausibly ever on this show. I teased yesterday that I had a major announcement. I don't say that lightly. When I say I have a major announcement, I mean it. I'm not going to give you a big tease and then a big letdown. And this one is positively massive. I think it's going to be all anybody is talking about. I don't know that this has ever happened in the history of the world involving a president and a journalist mom in America. So let's get right into it. Welcome back to Candace. All right, so where do I begin? Yesterday, I received a letter, and I would say that this letter plausibly changed the trajectory of this year, certainly for me. I don't know why people keep sending me letters, and I am going to tell you that I received this letter from a process server. Now, when you hear that you are getting a letter from a process server, you think one of two things in my world. You are being sued or you are being subpoenaed. It actually happens way more often than you realize. Sometimes you're being drafted into someone's lawsuit. They think that you have some information or some text messages, or otherwise you yourself are being sued, like when I was being sued by Kimberly Klacik for defamation, which eventually I won that after years. So it's not something that particularly unnerves me anymore, because typically sometimes you're getting drafted and there's no reason for you to be drafted. Your lawyer responds to it and it's completely over. But this one was indeed addressed to me. And what was strange about this is that when my lawyer was able to determine what it was and who it was from, this was atypical because it was not a lawsuit and it was not a subpoena, but it was a strongly worded letter. Essentially a legal threat. And people don't typically use process servers for legal threats. Even stranger was who it was coming from. It was coming from a law firm representing current sitting president, Emmanuel Macron, and his wife, Brigitte Macron. Okay? Like I said, this is insane. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of the world. Plausibly, you don't hear about a foreign leader currently sitting in power, sending around legal letters to people that are sitting in other countries, no matter what that person is saying. But it's going to get so much more crazier than that, okay? Because there were a lot of odd things about this letter. First and foremost, they strenuously requested that I not publicize it. They did not want me to publicize this letter all over it. This is not meant to be publicly disseminated. Okay, you have no legal right to tell somebody that they can't share a letter that they received. I'm sorry you sent it. I have a right to share it. And I'm going to tell you my suspicion about why it came across as they wanted to keep this rather hush-hush. But apart from asking me not to publicize it, they get into explaining to me how I am engaging in types of defamation. I'm going to show you this letter because the story behind it is even crazier, okay? So first and foremost, they are addressing statements, the bulk of this letter is addressing statements that I made last March. You're probably wondering in your head, why would they send this letter, which was addressed on December 3rd? That part is even crazier. But aside from telling me not to publicize it, they tell me right at the top that it's really none of my business whether or not Brigitte Macron is a man or a woman. Like, she doesn't have to answer that question. Here's what it said. I'm going to read you this verbatim. It said, this disinformation campaign is almost entirely based on a negative. Mrs. Macron has not provided definitive proof that she is a woman. Therefore, she must be a man. Not only is this an inherently unreliable basis for a claim, but also, and this is in bold, Mrs. Macron does not owe you proof that she is and always has been a woman, because frankly, it is none of your business. It is arrogant, self-centered, and truly offensive to believe that you are owed evidence of another's sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation. And additionally, it is defamatory to call someone a liar when they rightfully choose not to give in to your demands. Then it says, make no mistake, there is no shame in being LGBTQ+, but your accusations go beyond that. Okay. So right at the top there, again, what I've said to you that always struck me as odd about this story is this has been going on for approximately 10 years, okay? Now, if I'm the president and I'm dealing with a 10-year issue of people saying that my wife has a penis and I could just very easily debunk this, I'm sure as hell not going to pay lawyers overseas to send legal threats and legal letters that say, oh, okay, well, we're not going to answer the question, but we are going to send you a 100-page letter. It was 100 pages. Most of it was transcript. It really was like a 33-page letter. Most of it was transcript again. But the point being is that's a lot of effort for something that can be so easily debunked. So easily debunked. And I'm not the only journalist who've done this too. Okay. They're sending out letters, civil harassment, saying that it's causing them stress, it's causing them anxiety. Wouldn't you just answer the question at a certain point? Again, going with common sense. But it gets even more interesting. They also write in this letter that what they believe to be defamatory, among other things, is really just the implication to the French people that they're fraudulent and that they lie. So let me read that piece of this to you as well in this letter that I'm not supposed to publicize at all. These allegations are defamatory for multiple reasons. At the outset, it must be clear that there is nothing defamatory or reputationally damaging about being transgendered. But what is defamatory and highly damaging is attacking the integrity and the credibility of a president. I was like, I just have to chuckle at that in general because I'm just thinking about President Trump and all the attacks. Like, what's defamatory is attacking the idea that Biden lies or that President Trump lies. You're not allowed to question their integrity in France. Like, this is just such a European letter in the sense that, like, they have no idea what free speech actually means of a president and Mrs. Macron with this vicious rumor that they are lying and manipulating the French people. One you knew was false at the time of publication. Okay, obviously, I do not think this is false at all. I'm going to tell you even more why I insist that there is a lot to the story. But just writing that seems very strange to me. They go on to speak about how the only proof that we have, which is completely untrue, is Chinese software that is comparing the faces of her and her alleged brother that doesn't like to make any appearances, which could easily just debunk this, right? And they're like, this is like crap, saying that they look alike. All siblings do look alike, or some siblings can look exactly alike. They say that that's completely normal. And then they provide even more proof that it's obvious that Brigitte is not a man. And the proof is that Brigitte says she's not a man. I'm not kidding. Here, this is the actual language of the letter. They write, beyond this, your conspiracy theory hinges on Mrs. Macron's family refusing to subject themselves to public scrutiny. Okay, you guys. So the reason that they're not answering this or responding to this is because they don't need to be publicly scrutinized. Like, why would a president and a first lady have to be publicly scrutinized? That just doesn't come with the territory when you live in a place like Europe and you don't have free speech. They can just hush you and sue you for speaking. Like I said, they are in for a rude awakening. This is America. And the next line really gets me because they say what should be enough evidence to disprove these falsehoods is that Mrs. Macron has denied them. President Macron has denied them, and Mrs. Macron's daughter, Tifone, has denied them. Okay, so that's how it works now in the court of law, guys. If I say no, absent any proof, you need to just accept that's the truth. Everybody always tells the truth all the time, especially in politics. Haven't we learned that? Nobody ever lies in politics. If they say something, it's definitely true. Trust me, bro. It's basically trust me, bro. Then it just gets even more bizarre because they're referring to T-shirts as a form of yellow journalism. So I sold this T-shirt mocking Brigitte Macron. It was a fake Time magazine cover and it said Man of the Year. And they view that as a form of yellow journalism. And that's interesting. So I'm going to read you that portion right now. It says, since then, you have continued to knowingly and intentionally peddle yellow journalism, defaming the Macrons. Indeed, you released another episode mentioning the conspiracy on June 26th. And then it says on July 7th, you brought these lies to the Jimmy Dore show. On July 8th, you again posted on X, this time with a photo of yourself in a T-shirt showcasing a fake Time magazine Man of the Year cover featuring Mrs. Macron, which has received 832,000 views and 3,000 retweets. And they actually put a picture of me wearing the shirt in this legal letter. And I wrote, I'm calling it now Time Man of the Year. It's an incredible shirt. Obviously, we now need to get this back up on sale. I don't know what is actionable in a parody shirt. I'm not sure where they're going with that, but they wanted to mention in a very strongly worded letter that this is a form of yellow journalism, because there's obviously never been any t-shirts made about President Trump or Biden. You can't do that anymore. You're not allowed to sell Make Kamala Indian hats. Literally, what on earth were they thinking, including that? Okay. But here's where it gets really interesting. Okay. Then they insist on explaining to me that calling someone a rapist in France, they have different laws, and they insist that it's not statutory rape because Emmanuel was or would have been 15. They heavily imply this. This is the exact verbiage from the letter. It reads, Mrs. Macron did not statutorily rape President Macron. Let us be clear that the age of consent in France is 15. The two met and fell in love in 1993 when she was a drama teacher and he was 15 years old. When President Macron was 17, he vowed to marry Mrs. Macron, following through with his promise. They wed in 2007 when President Macron was 29 years old. Now, I want to first let you guys know that this is stunning because all throughout the time that President Macron was running, their story was that he was 17 years old. Okay. Now we have here writing that they're now adjusting that. All the publications said, oh, he was 17. It makes him sound like he's almost legal. And she was, however, I think they said she was 34. And one of the things that we told you was that this whole legend that they created in the legacy media was dishonest. And they allowed this to go on and go on until people started looking, independent journalists, and going, wait a second, Emmanuel Macron was not 15. And I also believe there's an interview where Emmanuel Macron states that he met her before he was 15 years old. But them implying that the age of consent in France is 15 is actually wholesale dishonesty, because what they're leaving out is the age of consent at that time when they were together. It was 15 only if the person that they had the affair with, the sexual affair with, was not someone who had any power or control. That is still the law in France today, okay? So in order for it to be age of consent, it cannot be a teacher, it cannot be a therapist, it cannot be any person when you are a minor that has control over you. And as they mentioned in that same paragraph, Emmanuel Macron was the student of Brigitte Macron. So that would not have been allowed under the law. And this is something that we are happy to debate. In America, this would be statutory rape one way or the other. And in France, I'm pretty sure that still constitutes statutory rape. But we will allow you to respond to that in a more thorough manner, because now that we've established connection, you have no excuse not to answer our pointed questions. We're going to go on and show you a little bit more of this letter, because this, to me, was the craziest part of the entire thing. So after saying, we don't have to tell you any proof, we don't have to show you any proof, trust me, bro. They then try to say that there have been some journalists that have introduced some evidence and you should have been paying attention in the form of, I'm not kidding, this is coming from the president of France. They have submitted to us screenshots of an 8-year-old video that they allege proves that Jean-Michel Trogneau, so the theory is that Brigitte lived as Jean-Michel Trogneau, then took on the name of a sister named Brigitte and became Brigitte Trogneau later on in life. Okay, that is the theory. They are now saying that this journalist noticed that in the background of Emmanuel Macron's inauguration, the real Jean-Michel Trogneau was there. They sent us a YouTube link, I'm not kidding, of 2 different instances, and they claim that in the background, you see this little fat man? I'm showing you, this is actually from a legal letter right here. They say that's Jean-Michel Trogneau. That's proof. Look, it's a still. They then sent us a YouTube link from the inauguration. And in the background, they're like, see, in the background, that's Jean-Michel Trogneau. We swear that's him. Hello, you are the alleged first lady, first man of France, and Emmanuel Macron, and you're telling me this is the evidence that you are supplying to journalists that this person exists, a link to a YouTube video that I'm going to show you right now. This is the link to the video. This is it, guys. This is proof.
Dans ces instants où tout...
Oh, was that not enough evidence for you to leave this entire theory alone? Like, they're not making a statement, but you should have caught in the background there. Here, we'll circle it for you. That's the real Jean-Michel Trogneau that they just won't do a press conference with and allow people to know where this person works, where this person exists, you should just know that that right there debunks everything, because this channel, Edition Speciale, captured that in the background, and they said a journalist said that that's definitely, some journalists said that that's definitely him. So we're ignoring all the journalists who are saying that's not, and we have a name for that person that's in the background. I'm not going to tell you that today, but that's it. They sent this via a huge law firm as proof that the real Jean-Michel Trogneau does exist. The lingering man in the background, link on a YouTube video that's 8 years old. Shocking. They're also upset that we here in America felt the Olympics ceremony was satanic. You're not allowed to say that. This is Europe. You don't have free speech. You can't say that the Olympics ceremony was very clearly satanic. Here I am saying it again. Wait till they find out that you don't get to tell a Christian what is and is not satanic because you are the president of France. You just don't get the right to do that. They wrote this in the letter. This is real. You pressed these lies harder after the Olympics opening ceremony in Paris. On July 29th, you released another episode titled The Olympics Exposed Brigitte Macron. As you know, the 2024 Olympics opening ceremony was widely misinterpreted as a reenactment of a Last Supper, but it was intended to represent the Feast of Dionysus. Nonetheless, you claimed that the satanic Olympic ceremony was really a ceremony to honor Brigitte Macron because she's transgendered. You posted on X that Brigitte is a transvestite and called it a demonic state. Now, this gets into them now drafting in Archbishop Vigano because they're talking about me retweeting Archbishop Vigano. Take a look at this. It is telling that you retweeted a statement by Archbishop Vigano, a man who had just been excommunicated from the Catholic Church for his denial of the legitimacy of Pope Francis and other crimes of schism. And it is me retweeting Archbishop Vigano explicitly calling Brigitte Macron transvestite. Now, to my knowledge, Archbishop Vigano has not received a letter threatening him. Isn't that strange? Called him a transvestite, has not received a letter at all threatening him. And I will tell you why that is. Of course, in every letter that people send, there has to be an honorable mention of the Tate brothers because they're always relevant. And then they wrote this, which is very strange. They don't include the language here. Your disinformation campaign included the Tate brothers, a pair of grossly self-proclaimed misogynists that are charged with human trafficking. I'm going to show you how rich that irony is in a second. On August 14th, you hosted Tristan Tate on Candace and discussed these claims. And the following day, on August 15th, you hosted his brother Andrew Tate. In the August 15th episode, you and Andrew reiterated your claims that the Macrons are dishonest, implied the French election was rigged like the 2020 U.S. election. Now, I know I certainly didn't imply that the French election was rigged because I don't follow French politics. I'm following the story because it's massive. And the way that you are acting in trying to play whack-a-mole with every person that looks into the story and recognizes that there's something here strikes me as odd. Also, asking me not to publish the letter strikes me as odd. And lastly, to the point of saying that us implying that you guys are dishonest, I don't even know, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind thinking that people can't imply that a president and his wife are dishonest? Or is it really that bad in France? Is it so bad? Are you just deluded out of your mind for me to say that I believe that you and your wife lie? It's almost a requirement to be in politics that you have to lie. You literally have to almost lie to become a president of France or the president of any place in the entire world. What is this letter actually about? Well, you guys might be wondering about now about the timing of this letter, because again, the referencing posts from June, primarily an episode that I posted in March upon a different platform. They have not drafted that platform into this complaint whatsoever. So it's targeting me at least 6 months after the last time that I've spoken about Emmanuel Macron. The story I'm going to tell you is insane. Absolutely insane. Hang on one second. We're going to throw it to some advertisers, and then I'll tell you why I believe they really sent this letter. Are the globalists gearing up for a pandemic scare after failing at the ballot box in November? Just weeks before President Trump's inauguration, California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a bird flu state of emergency, granting himself sweeping powers reminiscent of COVID-19 policies. This comes after a severe case of H5N1 bird flu was reported in Louisiana. Critics warn that pandemic fears may be weaponized to challenge Trump's agenda, including the nomination of RFK Jr. to lead the HHS. Is this a health crisis or is it a power play? Last summer, Dr. Peter McCullough warned about the bird flu, linking the virus's rapid spread to gain-of-function research, now a common practice at many labs globally. Dr. McCullough urges early prevention just in case, recommending a contagion emergency kit from the wellness company. His medical board approved solution with 5 critical life-saving medications like ivermectin, Tamiflu, a nebulizer, and hydroxychloroquine. Every household can now have access to these hard-to-get medications in the event of another pandemic. Get yours by filling out a digital intake form, and your kit will arrive within 1 to 2 weeks. Don't wait until the deep state puts their plans back into action. Stay ready for the unexpected. If you're a U.S. resident, head to twc.health/Candace and use code Candace to save $48 off, plus get free shipping. That's twc.health/Candace and use code Candace today. The new year is the perfect time to refresh your routine and set new intentions, plus step into a healthier, more confident you. If you're ready to invest in self-care that truly makes a difference, then Nimi Skincare has something special to help you greet the year with glowing skin and renewed spirit. Right now, use code Candace10 at checkout and you'll enjoy 10% off your order. Whether you're treating yourself or helping someone else start the new year on the right foot, this is your chance to try Nimi's luxurious skincare at a great price. Nimi Skincare is more than just a product. It is a brand that you can feel proud to support. Every item is made in the USA, reflecting the values of faith, family, and freedom. If you're looking for skincare that's extra gentle, Nimi also has a line of clean formulas, free of fragrance and other potential irritants, a thoughtful choice for anyone that's seeking a gentler approach. With these effective products, Nimi helps you begin the new year feeling confident, revitalized, and ready to take on your goals. So use code Candace10 today at NimiSkincare.com. That's NIMI skincare.com and save 10% on your purchase. Give yourself the gift of glowing, refreshed skin and a confident start to 2025 with NimiSkincare.com. So what is this actually about? Why are they sending this letter now? Like I said, the story I'm going to tell you, it's stranger than fiction, okay? It is my belief that the Macrons somehow became aware that we are just a couple of weeks away from releasing an explosive piece on Brigitte Macron. And I believe that this letter was sent to intimidate me. I don't believe that they intended to file anything. I could be wrong. My instinct here is that it was very much meant to terrify me because of an interview that I did, that they are worried that when I release is going to go global, because it will. The backstory of that is that during Thanksgiving week, at the end of November, I was contacted by a French reporter claiming to have a trove of evidence to support the claim that the First Lady of France lived as a man named Jean-Michel Trogneau before becoming and transitioning to Brigitte. This evidence was even complete with names of doctors who worked on Brigitte, a theory with a lot of evidence as to who mothered the children, who gave birth to Brigitte's children. Because I took this individual to be extremely credible, I got on a plane and I flew to meet this journalist in Europe, okay? We did an interview that went on for about 2 hours on camera, and I collected all of his evidence. And apparently, just 10 days after that initial correspondence between me and that journalist, Emmanuel and Brigitte had this letter written to me. It is dated December 3rd, so just 10 days. So that, to me, leads me to believe that somehow, and again, I have no evidence to support this claim, the communications of this journalist are being monitored. That they knew that he was flying to meet me, that they knew that we conducted the interview, and that they knew that I was in communication with him, telling him that the interview was due to release in 2 weeks, okay? They knew that it was coming out this month and that they scrambled to get this out, to beef up this letter as much as possible, running the risk that, okay, well, getting a letter from the president of France is a scary thing. You know how much power he has. She'll at least press pause and not release the conversation, hoping that I would just be scared into silence if they beefed up the letter with scary mentions, which they did, by the way. The bottom of the letter, they told me, think about Tucker Carlson and Dominion. I'm paraphrasing here. They mentioned Tucker Carlson and Dominion as a lawsuit. Billions of dollars you could lose, Candace, if you cover this story. First and foremost, what are you talking about? You're comparing apples and lean cuisines, frozen meals at this point. You are a sitting president, okay? You are not above reproach. You are not above critique. And I am certainly allowed to look into you and your life and to ask questions, okay? You don't get to compare that to a private company who is saying that they have real world loss because people no longer trust their technology. Again, that was mentioned only to try to terrify me, I believe, because they know that we're working on this piece and they know that we have the pictures that we have, which tell a very different story from what the media has been trying to tell people. I believe that this proves what their strategy is. Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron, as they expressed in this letter, say nothing. They give nothing about whether or not Brigitte is transgender. They don't address the claims while they go on. And then they wait for journalists to make a mistake. This is what they did to two other journalists that were in France. They sued them and they lied to the public about what was at the nucleus of the lawsuit, right? They wait for you to say, she's transgendered, she was Jean-Michel Trogneau, she changed. And then if you misspeak about something, as one of the journalists did and said, I think this birth certificate's fake, they sue you for that, for defamation. And they go, actually, that birth certificate wasn't fake. But they're not actually attacking the substance of the debate, whether or not Brigitte, in the current form, transitioned from a man named Jean-Michel Trogneau. They will not address these claims officially, despite sending these spurious articles and screenshots from a video from 7 or 8 years ago. They themselves say, we don't have to answer or produce any evidence whatsoever. So in terms of my issue, or their issue with me rather, they pounced on a mistake that I did make, by the way. They're not wrong, because after sitting down with this journalist and receiving the trove of evidence, they are correct that I wrongly identified at that time. And again, I was relying on a ton of reports, and I was clear that this was not my report, but rather what was going on in France. People were trying to answer the question of, okay, well, if Brigitte Macron did not give birth to those children, who did? And I wrongly named someone, which was being alleged at that time, named Brigitte Proba Ozier. Again, I was just reiterating what the journalists were saying at that time. And I learned from this journalist, who is entirely credible and has been working on this story for 8 years, that that is not accurate. And so that's what you're looking for, Brigitte, right? An apology for that, which you say is defamatory, for alleging that Brigitte Ozier fathered these or gave birth to these children, Brigitte Proba Ozier. You are correct. I'm not only just going to correct it here, I'm going to correct it in the long piece that I am working on about your background that I still intend to release in 2 weeks. So don't you worry. Any mistakes that I made, these little things that you're trying to catch on to because you don't want to address the substance of what people are presenting, which is whether or not you transitioned from Jean-Michel Trogneau to Brigitte. Any of the mistakes I made, I will fully correct on the record. And guess what? I now can do it in a way that's better than ever, because thankfully you have now reached out to me via your legal firm, which means that we now have a direct line of communication. And I'm going to send you pointed questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can now answer those questions, or you can decline to answer those questions. And if you decline to answer those questions, as you have done, well, then you can't prove here that there's any actual malice, because there isn't. I genuinely want to understand what the hell I am looking at throughout this trove of evidence. The people that have been involved in this, it is, like I said, the most explosive story ever. And what is interesting is that the reason you're going after me is because the only reason this story was contained for so long was because all of it was happening in France. Most of the people in the Western world can speak and understand English, which allows them to then look at the story in a different way. But when it was just in French reporters that were reporting on it, you were able to stifle that discussion. No more. I want to let you know that I'm not intimidated whatsoever. In fact, you have piqued my interest even further. And I want you to know that I'm looking into all of your friends, all of these instances of pedophilia, people that were involved. I mean, the English people don't even know about the Olivier Duhamel scandal, the scandal of another 14-year-old, a person that supported you, a person that you were in a lot of communication with, who had a stepdaughter come out and say that she was abused and that she was invited to elite, that her brother was abused, rather, let me correct that her twin brother was abused by Olivier Duhamel, which is, I fact-checked that online, and that appears to be a massive story in France, one that Le Monde, which is like the French New York Times, has been covering as something that you were quite worried about. That the Élysée Palace, quote, this is from Le Monde, ever since the Olivier Duhamel affair broke in early January, Emmanuel Macron has been monitoring each development like milk on the stove, reported Le Monde at the time. incest with his stepson, Duhamel's stepson, age 13 or 14. A lot of characters in your circle. Elizabeth Guigu, Hubert Vadrine, Daniel Cohn-Bendit. These statements that are made about them, Jean-Marc Borrello. There have been a lot of sexual incidences that have surrounded your presidency that the English-speaking people, the English-speaking world does not know about. And all of these have been submitted to me, and I am deeply understanding this scandal, and I am deeply appreciating why it is that a president of a foreign country would take this time to try to get me to shut up, because you've done a very good job of containing all this. But I don't know if nobody told you this. I'm pregnant, right? When I get pregnant and people threaten me, I don't take very kindly to those sorts of threats. So this is going to get extremely interesting, and I will give you guys, my listeners, my idea of what I think is going to happen right after one more message from our sponsors. Since the Fed has dropped interest rates, you need to call my friends at American Financing today. Now is the perfect time to consolidate debt and reduce your monthly expenses. I know there's a lot of hardworking Americans that have been forced to use credit cards because of the ridiculous prices for groceries, power, and even childcare. The debt can get out of hand with credit card rates being so high. However, with mortgage rates dropping, now is the time to wipe that debt out. American Financing is helping homeowners just like you save over $800 a month on average. They're even closing some in as fast as 10 days. If you start today, you may delay 2 mortgage payments. There are no upfront fees to find out how much you could be saving. So call American Financing today at 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210. Or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. That's americanfinancing.net/Owens. So maybe Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron will file this lawsuit in the state of Tennessee. Maybe they will. And maybe in their mind, first off, they definitely didn't expect me to show this letter. I'll tell you that much. It's not something that most people would do. Most people would consult their lawyers and stay quiet about stuff. I don't take kindly to threats. I don't like threats, okay? I didn't get to where I am in life, come from absolutely nothing, to have some elite people threaten me into silence because I am exposing what I deem to be the truth, okay? Least of all when it's from a foreign nation that doesn't appreciate free speech or thinks that they can boss me around and tell me what is and is not satanic and how I must report upon their Olympics. Doesn't really work like that, okay? It just doesn't work like that at all. I think what's going to happen is that they were banking on me being silent. They realized that is not happening. They are probably banking on their money, and they are probably banking on their power to somehow further stifle this situation, try to bank on, trying to silence me in court in America. Good luck, buddy. Good luck trying to make that happen. Good luck trying to make the piece that we are working on, which is still due to be released in 2 weeks, and it's not going to come out on YouTube. I now think that you had something to do with the very bizarre videos that were taken down, 3 videos in which you have named in this legal letter, which made no sense at the time when they were being taken down, because you were worried about the information that we were revealing. Well, you should know that when we drop this series that we're working on about the Brigitte Macron scandal, it is not going to be on YouTube. You will have no power here, okay? It will be released on my website, CandaceOwens.com, and people will be able to watch it, whether they want to watch it in French or they want to watch it in English. You're banking on power structures. I'm banking on the people. Because you see, Mr. Macron, both of you, both misters, in my world, I bank on the people. When I get an itch about something or an instinct about something, and people start thinking that the American people and the French people around the world are not going to win, I always bank on the regular people. You have no idea the army that we can unleash here of people that will investigate, that will look into things. Ask Kamala, friend there, ask Kamala what it was like when she went through the Kamala Chronicles. We will definitely, once the mothers here in America understand what is happening in France, inspire them, just mothers wanting to protect children, to look further into these claims and wonder what the hell is going on in France. And like I said, it will be an investigative army of regular people, okay? So I get it. You feel really protected by the state and you can send these sorts of things, but I think you're making the wrong bet here. We'll see what happens. Like I said, the piece is still due to come out in 2 weeks. And I bet, given the letter that you just sent me, the timing of that letter being particularly suspicious after all this time, that what we release will have more eyes than anything that we've ever released in the history of this show. So I bid you farewell, Mr. and Mr.